Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Alicia Richardson, Executive Director of 646 Downtown, and welcome to the third annual Invest Portsmouth. This year's summit is designed with technology in mind to reach a broader audience with the theme of awakening the entrepreneurial ecosystem here within the River Valley. Our partners include the University of Arkansas at Fort Smith, as well as the Peak Innovation Center. We are also happy to announce that our programming is occurring during Global Entrepreneurship Week, which expands our reach even further. To find out more about 646 Downtown, please visit us at 646downtown.com. Also, you can follow us on Facebook and Instagram. And as a reminder, you will need to register for each session today via Eventbrite to receive the appropriate links for the next sessions to come. Now, let's just jump right into our first session, our first one. Our session moderator is Dr. Letitia Sutton. She is the interim dean and professor of economics for the College of Business at the University of Arkansas at Fort Smith. And I want to bring the privilege up to the podium. And again, thank you for facilitating today's discussion on optimizing online presence to stay relevant amid a global pandemic. Thank you.
Okay, welcome everyone. Let's get started by learning who our panelists are today. So first I'd like to introduce to you Beth Price, who is the owner-operator of Bellstar Vintage and Antiques. Bellstar is located at 21 North 4th Street and provides 8,000 square feet filled with more than 60 vendors specializing in vintage and antique wares. Beth has been in business now for 10 years, and wow, what a wonderful 10-year anniversary 2020 has been for her. Her husband, Aaron Price, is also with us today. Aaron is the owner-operator of Craftsman James Woodworking. He says that his entrepreneur shop is a small garage shop, suited perfectly for creating, using traditional woodworking to find modern solutions to problems. You may also know Aaron as the former owner-operator of the Gadget Break here in Fort Smith. Next, we have Chris Chaney, who is owner-operator of Valley Cuts, located at 614 North 10th Street. Valley is a real barbershop for real people and has been in business here in Fort Smith for 3 years. And last, but certainly not least, we have Quentin Willard with Fort Smith Brewing, located at 7500 Fort Chaffee Boulevard. Fort Smith Brewing is a local brewery dedicated to bringing the community delicious and localized craft beers. Quentin has a background in the military and has been in business here in Fort Smith for also 3 years. So with that, we'd like to thank all of our panelists for joining us today. We have a lot of questions in store for them so that you can hear about their wonderful expertise that they bring to this panel. But we also want to encourage those of you who are with us on our Zoom call to ask any questions that you might have, and we'll get to those at the end. So let me start things off by asking our panelists, one by one, to describe your business on March 1 of this year. So think about what things look like at that point. And then fast forward to October 31, also of this year. How did things change? How did your focus on technology and innovation change over those 9 months? So Beth, we'll start with you.
Yep. Button on the top. Good introduction, thank you. Okay, so starting in March, clearly all of us were kind of in a tizzy, for lack of a better word. We opted to close our doors for in-store shopping probably the second full week of March. At that point, opted to go virtual only. This is never something I have utilized other than social media advertising, but as far as actual sales go, this is not something I've ever really utilized. But we jumped in head first, opting to utilize Shopify in connection Oh, sorry. This is also my first Zoom meeting ever, so what's up, y'all? It's all right. So yes, we opted in March to switch over to utilizing Shopify in conjunction with our website. That way we could still move product inventory for our customers. We did close for in-store customer shopping, and we switched over to doing curbside pickup only after purchases were made through our website. We utilized that method for several months until mid-May, which that is when we did open back in store with so many safety procedures and protocol in place that are still in place. But we did reopen for in-store customers mid-May. At that point, I elected to pivot off of Shopify virtual to go back in store because I realized essentially I was running two businesses simultaneously. That was 4 times the work. But of course, I am very, very grateful for utilizing Shopify and the means of the website to kind of carry us through the closure.
Great.
So at that point, I hadn't started doing really my business yet. The original plan was to spend a lot of time with Belle Star and help help her do some things. And so whenever that the COVID thing hit, it really changed all of our plans. And so I found myself working at Belle Star quite a bit, helping that transition happen and trying several different experiments to try to see what we could do, how we could innovate, how we could change with what we had to work with really, and see how we could, survive really.
Great. Chris?
Well, the barber industry was really hit. We closed. The barber board is actually not affected by the health department like the cosmetology board, but because we're in the pandemic, the health department basically superseded. And so from March, I keep track of all of our numbers from the day we opened to today. And so this year going into 2020, man, we were on an upward trajectory. It was beautiful. It was looking great. March comes along and you start seeing the news and you start seeing the fear and you start seeing, people kind of taper off, and then the health department comes in and says, you got to close. But during the pandemic, I'll tell you, actually our shutdown had ADD. So for a guy with ADD to not be able to do anything, I was like, oh man, this is terrible. So what I ended up doing to be able to offset some expenses and to add technology to what we do as a barbershop, I ended up writing a business book on barbers. Got that on Amazon. And then I too started using Shopify. At that time, Shopify, they may still be doing it, but at that time, Shopify was doing a 90-day free trial. And I thought, well, hey, there's nothing to lose here. So what we did was we launched the valleycutsclothing.com, and then I launched the sternerclothing.com for my I Am Fort Smith brand. And so plugged them under the umbrella, and it kind of helped to offset some things and really add some incentive also to the barbers as we reopened, because we were closed for about a month and a half or so. And fast forward to October, we're up. I just had my one of the barbers send me some numbers, but we were up in October over March, over 100 heads coming through the door. So we were impacted most definitely, but the bounce back was even greater with what we do with Facebook and Instagram, and also along with our websites and stuff like that we implemented.
Great.
Yeah, I was also in a similar industry as Chris. They wanted to shut down any sort of drinking establishments and that sort of thing also. So March was just like any other March. We're a new company, relatively new, so we're growing. We're planning on putting in a patio and a deck and everything, getting more seating so we can ramp up sales and stuff. So when March hit, also don't like to be restless, so just started thinking, what do we have? We have lots of land, lots of space. So we pivot, we put in a cinema, because that's one thing we've noticed throughout all the way up to October is one thing they're not going to get rid of is outdoor space. it seems like Arkansas is going to allow us to do things outdoors. Also, delivery. So we're really banking on those two legislative acts that still allow businesses to reach customers at their homes and also reach them out in big open spaces. So our whole business, what used to be getting them inside and getting them at our location, has now completely shifted to reaching them out wherever they're at. So we, everything we do right now is for the most part online. You can order online. You can, for your house or your business, wherever you want to go. You can go out in our parking lot, enjoy all sorts of entertainment in our parking lot. Everything is outside our doors now, and that's really kind of the way we're pushing things, at least the duration of this COVID, and most likely, because nobody wants this to happen again, I think a lot of businesses are going to have to spend at least 50% or more to reaching their customers wherever they're at. So a big part of that is obviously the technology. We rely heavily on technology now. These online forums, applications, any sort of internet base is where a majority of our focus is going now, where before a majority of it was in, face to face, being able to look at somebody, the old bartenders, your therapists, that sort of thing. That's kind of, we've got to figure out how to do that online now. And so that's kind of the future of the brewery and where we're headed.
Okay, great. So some of you have done this, but if you could just maybe review some of the things that you did to diversify your business model, to really provide, to adapt with your customers for this new marketplace.
Well, my business, it's a catch-22 really. I don't have inventory that I do wholesale ordering. My inventory is supplied by vendors. So on a day-to-day basis, it's constantly changing. So throughout this, as we were trying to pivot and shift strictly to virtually only, of course, I was focusing more on seasonal restocks, whatever was trending at home, puzzles. I mean, we saw such a surge when we went into closure. Our business, this is actually the healthiest year I've ever had, which is crazy to say, but I attribute it to the fact that people are staying home. They're redecorating, they're bored, they're trying to find something to do. So this has actually been a very, very healthy year as far as sales are concerned. Navigating how we would do vendor restocks and things of that nature, that was a very, very big challenge for us. But within a matter of a week and a half, I had uploaded over 1,000 items to that brand new website. And then it was just constant maintenance and staying on top of it. I too am kind of I have to stay busy. I can't just be idle with this. And I think all of us had our hands tied out of, in a sense, it almost was a sense of desperation of how I can keep my product out there, keep our business alive. And these are things that I'm very grateful for that we got to experience and go through, because if another imminent closure we're facing, I think all of us can say that we do have a little bit more under our belt now, confidently moving forward for how we can continue to evolve.
Yep. So one thing that I've really noticed is people still want to support small businesses. They still want to interact with their community and help their community and shop small. And it's more important now than it's ever been. All these small businesses make up such a big part of our community. And so for just the community at large to be able to shop and shop small. I've noticed that people they're interested in gifts, and they're interested in, what are some ways that they can engage in local businesses. And so mine personally, I had planned on doing a lot of custom furniture and custom things like that, but I've seen more uptake in gifts. So I had some things in my booth at Bell Star, and those have really been the ones that took off. And so I'm making more diversified products and just experimenting and seeing what all I can put out there. And yeah, I think it's been interesting to see the evolution, and so far so good. It's really been beyond my expectations, I guess.
Okay, Chris.
So this is an interesting question. Being a barber, how we run our business as a barbershop is it's probably no other shop from a local standpoint. I'm not talking about the franchise locations, but so how we run our shop is totally different than any other shop. And so as a business owner, my customer base starts with the barbers and then extends to the customers that come through the door. So one of the things that we did to switch up the business model to accommodate first the barbers was I said, hey man, listen, we have to figure out how to get you employed. Even though we come into this business to be self-employed, we need to figure out how to get you employed, because this pandemic, unemployment, they created that for people who were unemployed. And the biggest issue there that I saw was it exposed how flawed self-employed business models were. And so what I did was, I read through a bunch of tax stuff, went through and reorganized the business. Everybody's employed now. So if we have to close again, they don't have to go through the pandemic unemployment to get assistance, because that's a hassle. They can go through the regular unemployment. Secondly, we had to go in and do the social distancing measures. And so, I anticipated on having 6 chairs in the shop, but after looking at this moving forward, I said, well, we're gonna only stick with 4 chairs. And so we moved everything around. People aren't as comfortable with being in places with a lot of people, So one thing the health department forced us to do in the beginning was do appointments only, which was cool because we were already mainly appointments only in the first place. We didn't have to do a lot of adjusting as far as hardware because we already had a POS system in there. We already had touchless pay and subscription services and stuff like that we offered. So it gave a lot of peace of mind. I did buy some equipment, to fog the shop and stuff like that, to make sure the customer's peace of mind was first, that customers that come through the door. So my goal, and as I was sitting there during the break, I said, we have to change how we as barbers move. And so everybody jumped on board there. And then we changed how we moved in the shop to accommodate for safety for the customers when they came through the door. So it was pretty cool, pretty great. And everybody adjusted well. The customers loved what we did for them. And the barbers loved some of the ideas that I brought to the table to help them cope with everything, because our barbers have families too, so.
That's great.
Yeah, we did a couple things to diversify the marketplace. One was the big screen we kind of mentioned. So that we hadn't had drive-in enforcement for a long time. So that was a brand new industry right there. So much so that Walmart got behind it. A bunch of other people started doing it and stuff. I can't take all the credit. I did a lot of research in my, downtime, trying to figure out how we're going to navigate it. And that was, we had a bunch of extra space, so put 2 and 2 together, and it was pretty obvious. But that was one thing. The second thing is the beer delivery. Again, that's never been done in Arkansas, and here we are offering free beer delivery all over town. I mean, some unprecedented things that have completely revolutionized the market, and I think we're going to see a lot more of that going. Like I said in my last statements, is that things are going to be reaching people at home. They're going to be reaching people outside. You really have to get creative. You have to change laws. That's a big thing that helped our industry out, is the laws have changed, and they've allowed us to do alcohol delivery. They've allowed us to have people drinking in the parking lot and that sort of thing. So law has been a huge asset for us, mostly because we have a Brewers Guild here in Arkansas that lobbies for us for those things. So any industry you're in, I encourage you to find that guild or find whatever lobbyist you can, so that when these things hit the fan, you can lean on them and you can come together as a collective, as a group, and do whatever you need to do, pivot, change the laws to benefit you during those times.
Okay, very good. So if each of you could pick your one biggest success story for the pandemic, so the one thing that resulted in the most gain for you, or maybe it's not gain in your business, but just something that you think has revolutionized other businesses that fit the same industry, what would you say it would be?
Figuring it out. I'm just proud of myself, for us, for taking such a, no pun intended, but an antiquated system. Vintage and antiques is not necessarily one you associate with modern technology. So for us to be able to utilize the modern tools to move a vintage antique product, I'm very, very proud. Of course, our sales weren't what they would have been had we had in-store customers, but the fact that I had retention with all of my vendors. And I think the main thing is I really focus so strongly on maintaining a relationship with our customers. I've been in business for 10 years. Most folks know that the tall girl behind the desk is, Beth. So for me to be able to still have engagement with our customers, utilizing Facebook Live, doing fun video tours, giveaways, things like that, just engagement, and educating our customers on the new way to be able to shop with us during this time. I'm very, very proud of that, because that's totally out of my wheelhouse. And so I think that that's been my biggest success thus far, was just being able to rapidly jump and teach myself the new way of doing this, again, educating the customers and then still maintaining our retention.
So I'm going to kind of piggyback on what Beth said. At that time, with Bellstar in particular, they, antique businesses are completely opposite from technology, and so a lot of things are antiquated. And so as working with Beth and really taking that challenge on, we tried multiple different not point of sales, but online platforms, Shopify, Square, Squarespace, and trying to find some innovative ideas to try to transform that. And one challenge that we found was because we were shut down, once we had 1,000 products listed on the website, how do you restock? If we're completely shut down, we can't, our vendors, we support 76 different vendors, and so they all bring in their own inventory. And so once you run out of interesting pieces, how do you allow people to bring in more furniture and that kind of thing without putting everybody at risk? And so one of the things that we experimenting with was, looking for new platforms to try to allow the vendors to bring in their own inventory, send us photos and those kind of things. And so we played with a couple of software platforms, and I think we figured it out right before we were able to reopen. But it was, a lot of this stuff is just throwing the spaghetti at the wall and finding out what sticks. And for us, the social media, it's always been important for Bellstar. She does an amazing job at social media and just everything in general. But the social media was really interesting to try to tie that into to Shopify. Shopify is great because it's the only platform that allows you to directly integrate with Instagram. And so being able to shop particular photos, now that opens a whole new can of worms, because you have to create new products and set up all the categories and all the things that go along on the back end of things to be able to allow customers to shop. And our challenge is a little bit different because we only have one single piece items. Now, if you guys, if you're doing multiple pieces and you have inventory available that's all the same product, then you can set that up and be able to allow your customers to shop directly from the photo. So you stage a photo, it has a little dot, and then you click it and you can shop that way. And so again, for us, whenever we first started trying to put all these pieces together that didn't really fit the business model and doing all those things, our biggest success to me was the experiments. We just kept on and kept on and kept on to try to find something that worked. And I think that we finally, again, we figured it out. I think we have a good solution if we are forced to shut down again. And so, but trying all those different things gave us a lot more insight and gave us more creativity to try to move forward. So.
Chris?
Wow. I'm sitting here looking at these questions here, and the biggest success story I think that our shop can bring out of this, and let me backtrack. So Valley Cuts is the name of the shop, but the business is Cisterna Management. And so Valley Cuts is a subsidiary under Cisterna Management. That's what allows us to move the way we move. The reason I say that is like Quentin talked about the law. I love tax law, love it. I go through and comb through it and figure out the ins and outs, the do's and don'ts. And so because we're structured the way we're structured, the biggest thing for us is we didn't have to worry about keeping the doors open. I was online looking at barbers from across the country. That's what helped me decide to write the book. But I was online looking at barbers from across the country, and they were still cutting at the risk of losing their license because they didn't have their shops structured in such a way to take advantage of the SBA stuff or any of those things that was put there for the small business to survive through this thing. And we literally, whatever they put out, we were able to take advantage of to keep the shop going. The paycheck protection, that was great. We were able to still pay barbers while they were at home. And then we weren't worried about rent, utilities, any of those things where barbers were literally afraid. There was a barber in Canada that ended up getting divorced and losing his shop because he just couldn't cope. His wife couldn't cope, and he couldn't keep up with the bills. And so we were very fortunate. And that was the biggest triumph throughout this. In 2020, given what it is, like Beth said, it's been a great year for us. So.
Yeah, our biggest success was keeping employees, actually hiring new people, and finding revenue streams for other businesses. And not to beat a dead horse, but that cinema thing, and it's not the cinema, it's what the cinema represents, is you see what assets you have, you pivot, you do what you got to do to prioritize, make money, keep people employed, and help your community. And we were able to successfully do all three of those things. And so that's definitely our biggest success story. And that's what you got to do with any business at any moment, at any time. A pandemic could happen, you know, whether you go to 9/11 happened, or you got the market crash in 2009, or right now if you're in business, you're going to deal with these situations. You have to find your carpool cinema. You have to find ways to make money. You have to find ways to keep you guys employed. And you have to find ways to keep contributing to your community, your customers, and that society. And so that's definitely our biggest success story. But I do want to harp on that, helping other people, helping other businesses out. And that's kind of the beauty of local businesses. When this pandemic hit, all the franchises, they immediately fired everybody, said, you know, here's this paperwork, go file for unemployment, see you later. Small businesses don't take that route. You know, they feel some personal obligation to their team, their customers, their employees, everything like that. And so they struggle and stay up all hours of the night figuring out what they're going to do until they come up with this awesome new plan. And, you know, so we get a society that backs these small businesses, and that small business just turns into the future. So my carpool cinema idea was just a bunch of ideas I gathered together, put together, but had all four of us on this panel been sitting down and sitting in a room talking in March, we could have come up with something even bigger and better than the carpool cinema. And so I was successful in doing those three things I wanted to do. The next pandemic, I want to see this room right here, and I want to see people listening in come together and come up with the future. So right now we pulled apps and stuff from cities because they're creating apps and stuff that help us through this time. But I want to see an idea come from Fort Smith that the rest of the world is following, you know. And so that's kind of the way I look at this situation. It's just an eye opener in business. You know, we're only been 3 years. It's like, what's the next thing going to be? And what is our community and our small business doing to poise itself to be more successful than anybody else in the world? And so that's kind of my success from it, is all the learning and still being around, you know, today.
That's great. Those of you who are online, I want to remind you that we will be taking questions at the end if there are some things that you want to know that we're not asking. But I want to kind of summarize where we're at. If you've joined us late, we are hearing from some incredibly passionate and creative small business owners. They have really taken the opportunity to use the pandemic to their advantage. They've shared their success stories. And now we're going to ask them, what would be their advice to a business owner who maybe wasn't successful in taking swift action to adapt to the use of technology as a way to cope with the pandemic? So what if someone wasn't able, Beth, in your example, to really leverage Facebook as a means to get their inventory online, or maybe not to use some social media to develop a web presence within their business model?
You just got to jump in. I mean, you really, really do. And it's kind of like what Aaron said, you know, you just got to throw stuff at the wall, see what sticks, see what actually works for your business. I have several in my industry here in Fort Smith. We all operate differently. But there are so many tools to our advantage. It does take so much research on the back end, to figure out what actually works for the operator behind it. Because there's so many different platforms that we could have used, and we did try so many. But I think that that's key, is just the actual, determination to stick with it. There were so many times where there were knockdowns and said, okay, this isn't going to work. Let's table this. Let's try that. So, the constant evolution, it was exhausting, but there was such great reward when we actually started to see things ticking in the right direction. And that fed itself. Like, once I started to gain momentum through utilizing Shopify and really figuring out how to reach my customer base, it really it just started from there and kind of just started rolling in the right direction. So it really started to feed off of itself. And then there was so much support within my community. I reached out to several of my other vintage shops in the area, and we did join forces on quite a few things as far as safety protocol and things of that nature, to really develop how we were going to get product to our customers while we were still closed down. So, I think education is what's so important, whether it's TikTok, which I know nothing about, but I need to learn about the talk. There's so many different things that we need to be still continuing to utilize and use. That way we can reach all age brackets. I know, Facebook right now, I see a different age demographic from my customer base that utilize my Facebook sales versus my Instagram sales versus, So I think that, again, it's just trying everything, seeing what actually works for you, and then doing that research for how to keep evolving it. Yeah. Right.
My advice would be to ask. Find a business that's doing something that you think is interesting, and just ask. There's so many people in this, in the entrepreneur realm that want to help. Everybody here, the reason that we're here today is because we want to share what we've learned. And everybody that I've ever met, even if it's competition in the same space, everybody wants the whole community to succeed. And so if there's if you have a question about websites and that kind of stuff, feel free to reach out to me. I'd be more than happy to point you in the right direction. Social media is so important these days. And if you're not on social media, if you're not using that to better your business, it is an absolute must. You can try to find somebody, a social media manager, but it's never going to have the personal touch that is really the catalyst to grow that social media. And so just like Beth said, jump in feet first and just try it. Try again. But these things are, they're so important for businesses nowadays and in the future is staying connected to your audience. And that's something that in the past, we haven't had that luxury. And so now we have the luxury to talk to people on their mobile devices all day, every day. And so if you're not utilizing that, then you're missing out. And it can ease your struggles. It is a learning curve, but once you get that point, then you can really engage with your customers a lot easier, and it does make it easier. Yeah, it does get easier in the later run.
So I'd say push past the fear. A lot of people don't deal with social media marketing on any level because that's an unknown space for them. And fear is rooted in the unknown. That's the biggest difference between fear and faith. If you look in the Webster's dictionary, they both have the same definition, a strong belief, but one believes in the future and one doesn't know what's going on in the future. And the future is social media, that digital space. And so what you got to understand is what we're talking about is top of mind. We're talking about real estate in the consumer's mind. McDonald's has it. Walmart has it. You're competing with the same dollar. I tell them all the time, I'm like, there's a scene in the movie, The Temptations, and they're talking about, I think it was Lionel Richie's, the guy playing Lionel Richie's character says, would the consumer want to buy a hamburger or buy this album? So the question is, how do you put yourself in position and myself in position with these barbers? Do they want a haircut or do they want a burger? And I'm competing with that same space. So you have to push past the fear and say, listen, I understand this is daunting. My ADD almost didn't allow me to mess with it, because messing with Shopify, the sites that they give you, and then you got listen, man. But you got to be able to push past it, because if not, you'll get left behind, because there's somebody right now looking at your industry, whatever industry you're in, they're looking at it and they're saying, you know what I would do if I was. There's some youngster that's got time on their hands sitting behind a computer when we don't have that kind of time, but they got that kind of time. And they're sitting back there like, man, they could have utilized some SEOs and got da-da-da. You know what I mean? And so it's pushing past the fear and saying, hey, listen, how do I learn to understand these mechanisms so I too can own some real estate in my customer's mind?
Yep.
Yeah, very true. And just to piggyback off of Aaron, that's what I would have to say is ask. The community is only as strong as each other. If you have a community that you can't ask, then that's not a good community. You probably need to do business somewhere else. The most important way to overcome these business struggles is having another business that you can ask, another partnership within the community you can ask. And so we really need to get better about that in Fort Smith, is asking each other to help out, because, you know, I don't think it's any secret that we're behind Little Rock, Jonesboro, Northwest Arkansas, and we're the second largest city. So we're obviously not doing something right. So we need to start asking the questions. We need to start working with each other. We need to start developing better plans and better ideas so that we're no longer third or fourth or fifth to all these other cities. And so Chris hit it best. Just ask somebody. Collaboration is going to be your most important asset. Yeah, ask. Just ask. I mean, somebody's out there who's going to help you. Worst case scenario, you go online. You can ask the people who set up these sites. Like Google has it, or if you're using Square, you can call Square and say, hey, how do I do that? Like, everybody has somebody that will tell you how to use their system better. Facebook will help you out. I mean, Instagram, anybody. So, but ideally, you want to find somebody in your community who has used it, who has the experience, who knows the market, the exact same market you're working with, and they'll walk you through it. And then you got two awesome companies going through. Because like Chris said, we do want to see each other be successful. We're all in it together. Everybody in Fort Smith needs the other person to succeed. I mean, the barbershops need to succeed. The local barbershops need to succeed. The local antique store needs to succeed. The local brewery needs to succeed. All of us need to succeed to create a community that pushes us into the future.
Well said.
We have a question from our Zoom audience, and I apologize for any feedback that the audience may be receiving right now. The question to the panelist is, how much of the web social media platform / technology efficiency will you utilize in post-COVID-19 marketplace? How much will you utilize in a post-COVID-19 marketplace?
Well, leading up to even pre-COVID, I arrive at my shop every morning. We'd open till 10, but I'm usually there by 7:30. It takes about 3 hours every day just to prep for that single day's post. So whenever we were in closure, then there you add in 7 hours in the shop in conjunction with that. So literal hours goes into just one single day's worth of advertising and marketing. These are things, even though I'm not doing Shopify at this time, because thankfully at this time we are still seeing customers in store. If I do have to go back to where I'm resorting solely on that, like absolutely 100%, that is what is going to keep us moving forward. It's a huge chunk of time, as you were saying, with Shopify. Each single listing is an obstacle course, but if it works, it's worth it. It is worth every ounce of energy, even when your hair's falling out at the end of the day. So literally. So yeah, I mean, that is again one thing we're gonna keep utilizing, and again, especially with customer engagement, whenever you can't physically engage with your customers, that is what is so important to me for my business and for your brand. I mean, your customers, especially being a small business, people want to know who they're shopping with. They want to support people that they care about. They want to support your families. Because we're the ones at the end of the day that if we're not around, I mean, really, like you said, that's what our community foundation is built on. So absolutely 100% all of the social medias.
Yep. And social media, the website, any of that, it takes time up front to learn and get past those hurdles. But once you do it, we will use it forever, until something better comes along. And then we may add to that, or we may replace some of the processes that we have in place. But technology is here to stay. It's not going anywhere. These are tools at your disposal that are more powerful than anything that we've ever had, from marketing to measuring our demographics. These tools are here to stay. They're so important to have, so we will continue to use them. And as far as a marketing tool goes, a website is only as good as what you put into it. And so if you're not driving that website on and on and on, then you're going to have an informational billboard. If somebody's looking for your phone number, then they'll find it on your website, or you could take that and turn it into the best salesperson you've ever had. And it's all about how much effort and time that you put into it. And then social media is just that feedback loop of driving traffic to your website to make the sales, to continue your business, to continue to innovate and change your space. And so it's all part of the same thing. And so to say, are you going to continue to use it? Absolutely, you have to.
Dr. Setlich, before we continue, and for the sake of time and for the other two panelists, if you could answer that question, but also we have another question that has come in, if you could tie this into your response. It says, have any of you utilized UAFS students or recent graduates to help with your new digital initiatives? Seems fitting being at the university.
That is. So we have a dedicated budget for social media just to make sure that we can keep our presence out there. There's over 100 licensed barbers, over 50 licensed shops in Fort Smith. So that's a lot of clutter. And so in order to make sure that we keep ourselves out there and ahead of the game, we're definitely going to use social media and keep using social media. What happens is, you're talking about being behind. I cut a guy today from Houston, moved down here though from Michigan or something like that. And he said, man, there's so much opportunity in Fort Smith, because he realizes how far we're behind. And he's like, there's so much opportunity. Once you realize that all the businesses in Fort Smith are still operating the same way, you can move into a blue ocean and operate totally different than the other businesses if you utilize social media properly. Now, my brother, he's about 10 years younger than me. My brother, Hebron, he's tapped his customers that come in. He's got a lot of fraternity guys from here at UA Fort Smith. And so he's built a relationship with them where he's built a network where they're basically working with each other in conjunction to help bring customers through the door and do different things for them. And so he's kind of tapped into that UA Fort Smith presence as well. But listen, alongside that, if anybody would like to help from the college and you're watching this, we would we would love it.
Yeah, we actually want to move about 90% of our business to online. Like I said, we want an app where you can order and do everything. We can talk to them through the app and everything like that. The last 10% is just being in person, and just if you really want to talk something that's not online, there's the guy who makes it. There's the guy who put it all together. There's the guy who's talking about the future of the brewery, and so we definitely want to use online. That's the future of business, commerce, interaction, for sure. I mean, apart from an electromagnetic wave that wipes out all electronics in the world, which is what it would have to be with all the backups of backups. It's all going to be there. It's always like all my customers' information. It's how I'm able to serve them better. It's how I'm able to keep track of what their favorite beer is and everything like that. So we definitely want to do the online. As far as the using West Pointers, using UFAS grads is we've actually done it in the past. We've had some interns, and we've got two problems. One is they weren't equipped for the job we needed them to do. So particularly brewing, there's nothing here at UFAS that teaches people how to brew. Fortunately, University of Arkansas just started that program. And so I'm working with those guys and we're developing people so they'll be able to come right in. And then two, the price range. So say they are really good and they're amazing, because we don't have enough people supporting the local. I don't make what Outback makes. I don't make what Applebee's makes. So I can't pay these guys 40, 50, 60,000 what they're worth. So what ends up happening is they get scouted out to another city. So until our citizens start supporting local businesses, we will never be able to pay UFAS grads what they're deserved. You get the top of the best here at UFAS, they're immediately going outside of our city because we can't afford them. So we got those two problems. We need to get the certification programs here at UFAS, and two, we need to start supporting the locals so that we can afford the highest echelon graduates when they come out.
That's a great point. That's a great point. So some of you in your responses have talked about outdoor activation of space. So for those of you who are watching online, outdoor activation of space has really grown during the pandemic. Beyond simply enjoying a meal at a restaurant on an outdoor patio, we see experience engineering of parking spaces to create cultural activities. There are barbershops who've turned parking lots into space to serve clients, complete with barber chairs, music, etc. Those of you who are on the panel today, have you stretched your innovation limits to take advantage of outdoor activation of space? And can you talk about those a little bit more? Or if you maybe have plans for the future, share those with us.
Well, I'm very fortunate that I have a giant property attached to my building. Thus far, I have not utilized that space for outdoor events, strictly just because the business being open 7 days a week right now and the capacity that it is, I don't have the manpower behind that to focus on it. So thus far, what we've really just done is absolutely utilize curbside pickup and things of that nature. Depending on how things evolve in the future, I absolutely hope that we will be able to incorporate more community events in a safe fashion in our outdoor lot. But at this time, aside from curbside, I'm not able to do so.
So that is a good question. We have that lot. It's, our business model with Bellstar is supporting micro businesses. And that is a huge part of what we do. It's driving, it's creating that space, that shopping space for all these small businesses, and giving them, finding ways to get customers to come see them. And so in 2019, we did spring fling and fall fling and had lots of people come to the lot and see different, Quentin was there with the brewery. We had a lot of local small businesses out and being able to show that support to our community. But with that said, it was, we decided not to do that again this year just because the amount of people that we had. And so as of right now, we had to stop that, but we do plan on creating that atmosphere again. So with the short amount of time, I'll pass it over.
Man, 2 minutes. I'll keep mine short and sweet. If we can figure out how to fix the flooding downtown,
yeah,
we might be able to operate outside of our barbershop. But hey, I don't want our people floating away. So until that, we're going to stick with the social distancing inside the shop, keep our stations 6 feet apart with our seating 6 feet apart, and just kind of move from there.
Yeah, we're moving everything outside. We'd love if we need to spend more time outside. We're the natural state. We got so much natural free beauty, take advantage of it. So our tap room is slowly integrating into the entertainment district, which has become out there in Chaffee Crossing. So you got your beer pong, you got your, bago, everything you want to do inside, you can do outside just as easily and more happy, so we're pushing everything outside.
Thank you guys so much. To those of you who've been with us today, we hope that you have enjoyed hearing from these great entrepreneurs. It's clear that they have the creativity to survive and thrive this pandemic. Those of you who've been on the panel, you have done a great job. of really letting us in on your secrets to success, and we appreciate you so much. So if you are online, remember we have another session starting at 2, and we hope that you'll join us then. Thanks, and have a great afternoon.